Hi! Today on How Are We to Live, we are joined by Fiona Redding. Fiona is the founder of The Happiness Hunter. She is a mindset coach, author, motivational speaker, and host of 2 podcasts. So she is very busy, making many moves, and I am very grateful she has made the time to join us today. But today we are going to be talking with her about something a bit different. We are going to be hearing more about her story and talking with her about her spiritual path, faith, connection to God, and how that has played a huge role in the transformation of herself and her life. I'm really excited to share her unique perspective with you because this conversation made me feel really aligned and connected, and I just hope you can feel that energy too. From listening to your podcasts, I have some insight onto your stories and what you're doing and what you're about. But I guess for the people that maybe don't know you, there's a story that you have. It's sort of like a pivotal moment for you when you're in the car with your kids. And I was wondering if you could share the story leading up to that.
Thank you for having me on your show, Bella. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm excited and curious about our conversation today too. I think it's going to be really a good little adventure. So basically, I had over the years, I enjoyed drinking alcohol a lot, and that kind of was okay for me. And, other things like a lot of recreational drugs and stuff as well through my 20s and 30s. And then I had 2 kids in quite quick succession in a relationship that wasn't necessarily, hadn't gone through the traditional kind of courting process, if you will. Read into that what you want. And so I had this experience where I was driving in my car one day with my kids, and they were little, they were 3 and 2. And by this stage, actually nothing was working in my life. I was really unhappy. I was really overweight. I was unfit. I was unhealthy. I hadn't been able to get work. I was unemployed. I was in a really unhappy relationship. We had really serious money issues going on. And I was just I couldn't believe that this had kind of become my life. And I had this experience where I was driving along with my kids in the back seat of the car, and I was really hungover, and I probably shouldn't have been driving, really. And I looked in the rear vision mirror at the kids, and I was on my way back, I caught my own eyes in the mirror, in the rear vision mirror. And by this stage, I had such contempt for myself. I really did not like myself at all. I had no self-respect. I just didn't. I wasn't enjoying myself. I wasn't enjoying my life. I loved my kids. And I caught my eyes in the mirror, and I heard this voice inside my head say to me, Fiona, you have to stop drinking and start meditating. And I was, what? And it was probably another couple of months after that I started meditating before I stopped drinking. I started listening to guided apps. And then about 2 months after that happened, I just woke up one day and I knew I had to stop drinking. And I stopped drinking. Literally, I stopped drinking. I'd been trying to moderate and all the rest of it for years. And then 2 weeks later, I left. My kid's dad took the kids. I had no job. I had no money. We had nowhere to live. And I literally just left because I'd said to myself, I will know when the right time is to leave. And I won't even bore you with the story, but something happened where I heard this voice in my head saying, you can go now. You can leave now. And I just left. And I never doubted it. And it was I had these really kind of metaphysical experiences from somebody who didn't believe in any of that. And so I never have once questioned giving up drinking. I've never once questioned leaving that relationship. There's something really powerful in that.
First, thank you for sharing your story with us, and I really appreciate that. Just you're saying the sort of metaphysical experiences. You mentioned that you have been studying it for 10 years. Was that was that moment what led you to
Well,
start studying?
I think I was probably called to it. And I had no idea of any of that at that moment in time. And I actually sort of discovered my teacher after that whole experience. And I think those things had to happen for me to be able to do that. Like, there's no way I could be meditating or doing the studies or whatever that I've been doing, drinking. Like, it's not possible, because drinking kind of completely disconnects us. It disconnects us. There's no connection at all when we're drinking.
So did you ever, once you sort of had these moments of you know what to do, I know you said that when you were leaving the relationship, you never had any doubts. In any other circumstances of change, you knew you wanted to change and you knew who you wanted to become, but did you ever find yourself regressing to old habits in any
constantly?
circumstance?
And there's been a couple of experiences, and I actually just went through one last year where I realised I was just going completely the wrong way about things. So with the right, like sort of having the right guidance and intuition and the trusting of actions to be taken, it's like the ego still hooks in, and the ego can hook into anything. And if we're not kind of being vigilant in the way we're thinking and what and how we're doing things, we can very easily manipulate ourselves into thinking we're doing the right thing when actually we're not. And so I've had a couple of experiences over the times where it's like literally the rug gets pulled out from under you, and you have to kind of do a big kind of reassessment. But they're always, those experiences make you stronger and make you better. And I think they are just necessarily part of the path of spiritual growth and advancement, is that you need to kind of go the wrong way sometimes to know you're going the wrong way, like we're humans.
Yeah, that's something that's been coming up for me. Just when, like, we convince ourselves we're doing the right thing, like, how are you supposed to know then what is the right thing? Yeah, how do you decipher that for yourself or manipulating yourself?
So I think, for me, like, we can convince ourselves of anything. Like, really, we can convince ourselves of anything, and we choose to see what we choose to see. So for me, one of the things that's been very helpful and beneficial is actually studying with a master, somebody who's actually already properly done that. So not kind of the new agey, just focusing on the law of attraction kind of thing, but actually working with somebody who is helping you become aware of those weaknesses and your darkness, and like shining that light for you, being that person to shine the light, because we can't see what we can't see and we don't know what we don't know, and anything can be manipulated. So, and that's what I was saying before, feeling like I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing, going the right way about things, but then through the other practices I've got, like meditation and journaling and all of those sorts of things, when we're really honest with ourselves, like truly honest with ourselves, and are willing to take the feedback from the external world in terms of what might be what we're reacting to, or what is triggering for us in other people, or where the feedback is that actually this seems to be like a dead end. If we can then use that as the reflection piece to actually go, hang on a minute, there's something not quite right about the way I'm going about things here, because I'm aware of kind of what I'm seeing or the feedback that I'm getting from the world around me. Because if I was doing the right thing in the right way, I can still be going through struggles and challenging times, but it's different. And it's just, and that's what I mean. Sometimes you've got to go the wrong way to know you're going the wrong way. Like, that's actually how we learn. We learn through experience. Somebody can tell you, don't do that, you're going to burn yourself. Don't do that, you're going to hurt yourself. And you go, yeah. Once you've burnt yourself once, you're not going to do that again. Like, you're not going to put yourself in harm's way like that again. But often we don't understand it is harm's way until we've been harmed or done harm. And then we have to kind of take the corrective action from that. And that's how we learn. And we don't need to be afraid of that.
My question is, you're saying that you had like a teacher guiding you. And yeah, I think a lot of us, well,
I can't speak for everyone, I think for myself, feel like we need to do things alone and need to, I don't know, just feel like we need to figure it out on our own, otherwise it doesn't count or something. How do you even go about like having a teacher and that sort of thing?
You know what they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And you know what they say, when the student is really ready, the teacher disappears. So if you are genuinely, honestly seeking, and I know you are because you are doing this show, I'm a teacher. The editing process is a teacher. The marketing process is a teacher. Like, the teacher is everywhere. The teacher is in everything. But I think the advantage of having someone who has actually walked that path and transcended their ego and understands, you know, is Christ consciousness, you know, like they are enlightened. They can see things for you and in you that you can't see yourself. And their job is not to give you the answers. Their job is to ask the questions for you to find the answers. So they don't give you the answers. And I think that's the myth of, you know, the guru or the student master disciple relationship. They don't give you the answers. We have free will. We have to learn how to discover that the truth of what is within us for ourselves, like what we are and what we are part of for ourselves. And this need that we have to do it on our own is the illusion of the ego, because we're not on our own. Like we're not. And so that's having the ability to kind of be able to challenge yourself in that and actually go, well, you know, who was it? Socrates says, you know, he was the Oracle of Delphi, said he's the wisest man that's ever lived. You know, he said, I know that I know nothing. He didn't assume he knew anything. So the further along we go, this path, and there's this idea called spiritual superiority. And this was another moment where I actually got completely, like, literally felt like I'd been brought to my knees when I learnt about this thing. And I'm like, oh, I do that? Oh my gosh. But that's basically where you've got a little bit of knowledge and you start judging all the people around you who are not, you know, doing that, you know, or they should know better, or they're behaving in this way or whatever. But you're judging, spiritually judging, or judging, like, and judgment's the killer. So when you're saying I have to do this on your own, you are judging yourself that, you know, if I don't do this on my own, then it's not a real success or it's not a real achievement. But no man is an island. We're not meant to do it on our own. We're meant to help each other. We're meant to support each other. We're meant to guide each other. We're meant to challenge each other. We're meant to be honest with ourselves. And, you know, like that idea of somebody who agrees with you is your enemy. It's like the echo chamber. It's like you want people to challenge you. You want people to kind of go, hey, have you thought about it this way? Or maybe blah, 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 without you reacting, so that you can kind of help each other become better.
What you were saying about everything is your teacher. It's sort of like the student equals guru and the guru equals the student, the one and the same. And because you're a coach yourself, actually I was wanting to ask you, is there anything, like what's the biggest lesson or a recent lesson that you've gotten from your clients?
Oh, look, I'm always learning, or like, you know, really stepping into that role, as well as, like, you know, it's a symbiotic relationship, the coaching relationship. Like, it only exists because we exist, kind of thing. But, you know, like, I even just had a session with a client just before we got on this call, and we've just come to the end of a coaching agreement, and we're just about to set off into the next one. And we were just talking about, you know, what shifted for her and changed, and, you know, what we want to focus on for the next bit that we're working together. And we've literally spent the last few months together helping her become aware, like have more awareness of the way she interacts with the world. Like, we haven't done, you know, strategy. Oh, we've done a bit of strategy. We haven't been doing, like, you know, these are the goals that you're working towards, and it's actually just having conversations about the things that she's struggling with in life. And I don't know if it's something I've learned, but I think it's just really reinforced to me. We spend so much of our lives focusing on where we are not. And we just don't spend enough time focusing on where we are. We're always looking for the next or the thing that we haven't got yet or where we're not. And it's like, why can't we just make where we are better? And that was the insight that she really got. And I was like, yeah, that's so good to be reminded of that. And it's, I think also too, you know, like we always attract to us what we are, where we are, to show us what we're at and where we are. And it was really just kind of reminded me that that's what I've been focusing on at the moment too, is actually just truly being in the present moment and accepting what is in this present moment and looking for the lesson in the experience without wanting to judge it or change it or wish it wasn't the way it was.
Yeah, I heard you say in one of your recent podcasts, you're just focusing on being a human being and not a human doing. I'm wondering how you sort of balance that, I guess, because you are obviously making lots of moves and lots of businessy things and life. You have kids and a family, and yeah, because I know sometimes it's sort of like the whole surrendering to the universe or like manifestation. Sometimes it gets confused with people. They think it just means you're not doing anything. So what would you say to someone that is a bit skeptical, like, oh, you can't just, we have to do stuff?
I love that we're having this conversation. It's so hard because it's such a great question. And it's something that, you know how I said to you about going the wrong way, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about, is that we can get so stuck in the doing and feeling like we need to be achieving and whatever. I'm all for doing. I'm all for taking massive action. I'm all for taking lots of action, inspired action. There is nothing that feels better than kind of being in the field of play, right? Like it's exhilarating when you're actually like doing stuff and achieving stuff and whatever. But we need to pay more attention to the state in which we're doing it. So that the being, and I've, in terms of, I guess, I mean, I can only really speak from my own experience, and I know that's why I'm on this show, so I can speak from my own experience. But I like to think about it. It's like a combination of all of the great spiritual teachers and all of the great coaches and all of the greats, I just look at all of it, and I just think we need to be present. So we need to be meditating. We need to be breathing. We need to be calm. We need to just be connected with nature. We need to do all of those things, and we need to do all of those things first. They need to be our priority. So we need to be balanced and harmonious within ourselves. From that place, we are then able to receive guidance, instruction, direction. We get it. We are connected with, what a multitude of different names, the higher self, our source, God, spirit, higher consciousness. Doesn't really matter. It's all the same thing, right? And we have different names for it, and there's different mechanisms to move into that space. Now, and from that space of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, I just now need to make a bit of a plan, and then I just need to take action on that plan. But what happens as you're doing that, like when you are at the right energetic vibration, when you are clear-minded, when you've got an open heart, when you're physically balanced, you're eating well, you're nourishing your body, you're in loving, caring relationships, you're doing all of those things to care for yourself, you're going to have better ideas, you're going to have good ideas. They're your ideas, they're for you. They're not copying somebody else's strategy or anything. They're for you. And you can just take action calmly, confidently, without doubt, and that's how you kind of do it. But I think what happens if you haven't got all of those things in play, like I like to think about it, it's like a mixture of Eckhart Tolle, right? Like Mr. Present Moment, and then you've got like Abraham Hicks, so we're talking about, all of the law of attraction and, raising your vibration and getting on the high flying disc and all of those sorts of things. And then you've got kind of like someone like Tony Robbins, right? Who's like, just take action, take action, take action. And if you can kind of marry all of those things up into one thing, which is really, for me, the mind, body, spirit connection, you can take huge action, and it's really it's like focused action. You don't need to be working for 8 hours a day. It's just you get this idea to make this phone call, then you go and make the phone call. And then you have a discussion, and then you've got to send the email, and then you've got to make the meeting, and then you've got to do the preparation for the meeting, and then you've got to go to the meeting. But you're making sure that you're calm and you're in flow and you're doing all of those things. As you do that, you kind of get matched up with the opportunities and the people and the experiences. And like even with this, Bella, like lots of people put ads in or notes in groups to say, do you want to come a guest on my podcast? And I saw this and something like ding, and I was like, I'm just going to message Bella. Doesn't matter where it goes. Doesn't matter if I've never go on a show. I need to connect with her. That's what I mean. And it's like what happens from this is not my business. So I don't have any attachment to any outcome with anything. And I'll give you an example of this, right? So last year, I told you where I sort of came from, and I made this decision. I was going to be happy, and I decided really I wanted to know my potential. I wanted to know my potential. I was like, I've gone so far that way, the way I didn't want to be going. I was like, what's the opposite of that way? And I'm like, I'm Australia's most successful female entrepreneur. I'm a multimillionaire, excellent relationship with my kids. I'm an excellent role model. I've got this amazing global business. I just set this huge vision for my life. And then I went about kind of doing it and trying to knock out all of the limiting beliefs and everything along the way. And, I'd written 2 books, I had 2 podcasts, I had really quite successful business. And then it was almost like it got taken from me overnight. I deleted my books, deleted my podcast. I actually had deleted the first book, decided not to publish my second book at that moment in time. I have since published it. Basically just pulled everything back. And I was like, all I need to do right now is pray and meditate, because I don't even know how I'm going the wrong way about things. And I'm looking at everything and I'm like, do I keep this? Does that go? Does this stay? And I was like, you know what? I don't know. And I don't know that the lens through which I'm making decisions anymore is correct. I'm not trusting myself. I need to let everything go. And if it all goes, and that's the end of the Happiness Hunter, my business, so be it. I don't want to go the wrong way anymore. And that's basically what happened. And then I slowly started to reintroduce things. And then I had another experience recently too, where a similar thing happened. And I thought, there's just more stuff I've got to let go of. And now I'm just coming back, and I've just had an experience in the last month or so. I've had quite a serious family issue going on with one of my kids. It's been quite unwell and is okay, but it's been just this absolute deep leaning into trusting and letting go. And it's there's this. And then I had the Always With Me podcast that came to me. This idea came to me after I just had so much resistance to moving forward. And it's I'm kind of just being gently redirected now, because I said, I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm allowing myself to be kind of led and redirected in a different way. And what I'm finding is that I've kind of been calling myself a mindset coach and not talking so much about the spiritual stuff, which is obviously what we're doing today, for fear of, I don't even know what, probably the reasons why most people don't want to. And I'm like, I have to start talking about it, because actually, if I'm really honest, that's the thing, is that comes before the mindset. The mindset comes second. And I have to be honest about that the reason why I am succeeding, or I don't want to say I'm succeeding, what's that, even a judgment? I don't even know. But the reason why I'm feeling more content and happier in my life is because I am just not worrying about what the outside world thinks anymore. It means I've stopped the self-judgment. But I had to go through all of the things, and everyone says that. You'll look back and you'll see that there was a purpose to it and a benefit to it, and so learning how to happiness is to be found in the overcoming of obstacles and challenges in our lives, not in the absence of them. So to learn to be truly grateful and present in whatever experience that you're going through is the sign of progress, I think. That's a really roundabout, long-winded answer to whatever your question was.
No, it was great. Thank you so much. So many gems in there. What you were saying, that happiness is found in overcoming the obstacles, not in the absence of them. Is that how you would describe? Is that what happiness is to you?
So for me, happiness equals inner peace, right? Happiness equals contentment. Happiness equals comfort with yourself, right? Being able to put your head on the pillow at the end of the day knowing you've done your best. It's not about being perfect. And so I think it's easy to feel good and happy when everything's going your way, right? When your ego's pleased. It's not easy to feel happy when things aren't going your way and life's challenging and difficult and hard. But if you can find your way to be okay at the top of the mountain, and if you can find your way to be okay at the bottom of the mountain and in the valleys, and if you can find yourself to be okay in the middle of the mountain, and just, it's okay. Like, everything's an experience to be experienced, but I'm not judging my success or my worth or my value as to whether I'm at the top of the mountain or the bottom of the mountain. And you know, when I said to you before about the books and the podcasts and stuff, I got to the Happiness Hunter podcast. Honestly, it released every Monday morning at 9 a.m. through COVID, through lockdowns, through moving house 3 times. There was one day when the podcast went out on the Monday morning, which I recorded that morning because I was running late. And then I moved house that day. Like, it was like, I was like, there is no, I'm not allowed, it's like, this is a training for me, like self-discipline. There is no reason why this podcast doesn't go out on Monday morning, come hell or high water, right? It was a training of myself. Anyway, and when I was starting to go, I'm like, and I was about to publish my second book, and I was self-published, and I was like, at what point does this game end? I'm like, when am I allowed to stop releasing this podcast every Monday morning? And I still don't feel successful, and I've got 2 podcasts, and I'm about to release my second book, and I still don't feel successful. And I'm like, when does this game end? At what point do I go, you're okay, Fiona, and you're doing okay? And I'm like, and I just had this really clear understanding, it actually never ends. And I'm never going to feel satisfied, and I'm never going to feel fulfilled, and I'm never going to feel like I've done anything good with my life, because whatever I'm doing, it's never enough, because the ego is going to hook in, right? So I get these really inspired ideas, and then attachment comes to that. So I'm like, I just want to be able to act on my really inspired ideas and just have fun with it and enjoy it and love my life. And of course, what happens as you do that, all of the things that you were working so hard for and trying to make happen before just start to flow and happen. But you're not happier or sadder because of that. You're just grateful, super grateful for all of it. And I think that's the space I'm really stepping into now, is actually just being okay with what is and teaching other people to be okay with what is. You can still set awesome goals. You can still create amazing things, but your happiness doesn't depend on that. And, you know, like as I was saying, I had this experience with my kids, and it actually this morning we've just kind of found out my son can go back to school, but we were actually looking at potentially me not being able to actually work, like to care for him. And I actually had to find my peace with that, and I did. And I was like, oh, well, this is where I'm meant to be right now, then be it. You know, it's not forever. I was like, oh, wow. I don't feel like, it was just this sense of real peace and acceptance, and the stuff that kind of had to be healed through that with his dad and all of this stuff, all this amazingly good stuff. And I'm like, there is good in every situation. And to be really in one of life's more challenging situations without, you know, judgment or whatever, but really challenging sick kid, and to just say there is good in this. I'm not diminishing anybody's suffering. I'm not saying it's not a really sad, challenging, difficult time, but let's accept that there's also good in this as well. And like, what can we learn from this? And you know, that happiness in the overcoming of obstacles and challenges, I think in the darkness, in the valleys, we are closer to God or source or that high level of consciousness if we allow ourselves to be, than we ever are at any other point in time. Because that's the challenge, to allow that in the darkness. It's easy to feel good when everything's going your way.
What would you say gives you the strength when you are at the, like, how have you come to this point where you can be happy no matter whether you're the bottom of the mountain
practice,
or the top
by the
or
way.
the middle?
I'm not saying I've perfected that, but you know, like there's a deeper understanding of it now. Look, I think I have really been leaning into my faith. So for me, and this was not something I would have expected, you know, 10 years ago, is like, I believe in Jesus Christ. And I think I've kind of got to this now because I do study with master. Like, I really understand the role of a master. And I understand, and this is my understanding, I'm not saying this is the way it is, this is my understanding. This idea of Christ consciousness, which is Jesus the Christ, like Jesus was Christ consciousness. Like he lived that, that sense of enlightenment, that connection. He understood who he was and where he'd come from. Literally had transcended his ego. Right? So he had learned how to live on earth in constant communion with God, right? With Christ consciousness. And that, I think, understanding that and that learning to follow his footsteps in terms of how he did that. Loving kindness, forgiveness, compassion. He knew who he was. He wasn't afraid to speak up for himself. He was confident. He was like learning to live in action. Love is an action. Love is an action. And the practices, particularly of meditation and prayer, have been incredibly powerful for me. And that's, as I said before, that's me now. I feel like I have no fear and I don't have any doubt about stepping forward and just sharing that. I'm not telling anybody what to think. I think before I felt like I'm bloody waving my bloody religion or my spirituality at you. It's like, you can do with it what you want, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore for fear of upsetting people or putting people off or them unfollowing me on social media or not wanting to work with me or anything like that. But you know what's fascinating? Part of the reason why I didn't used to want to talk about it was because I was worried it might have an impact on clients wanting to work with me. But fascinatingly, since I've stepped into this space, like truly stepped into it, I'm not saying I'm just not pretending to be a guru or that I need to know anything. There's a deep humility that's involved in this, like much more humility than I've ever had. And I had to go through those experiences of really being brought to my knees and, just seeing the falseness in so much of what I was doing. I've now, like, my business is completely like transformed. Like really big clients are working with me and wanting to work with me because I'm much more confident in who I am. So energetically, I'm attracting different. It's so interesting, Bella. It's like all of these things I was afraid of, none of them were true. It's just that's the crap we want to believe, right? And the other thing, sorry to keep talking. The other thing is on that as well is that like by you and me stepping out and having these kind of conversations, it gives other people permission to be more honest and truthful with themselves and the people around them as well about what sustains them in life and what gives their life meaning and purpose and fulfillment. And honestly, all of the material things, honestly, it was almost like I could see that there was a choice I had to make. And I was like, I don't want that if it means I can't have this. This is what I want. And if that's what I need to focus on, then I'm willing to do that because I know that those things without this mean nothing. They mean less than nothing. This is the only thing I care about because this is the only thing that's true to me. But it doesn't mean that those things, like as I said before, it's just a game. Let's just have fun with it. But let's do it connected and lovingly and not caring about what the world thinks and not doing it for external applause or what other people think. We're just doing it because it feels like the right thing for me to do.
That's so beautiful that you feel that within yourself, that you fully stepped into and you can express yourself more authentically. I bet that feels
so. But 10 years later, by the way, like, you know, and I think it's not a quick fix. And I'm not saying I've arrived anywhere. And I think being able to say, like, I am nowhere is really kind of liberating. Like, where are we supposed to be ending up anyway? Like it's not even real what we think. It's like, just be present now, lovingly connected, focused, present to whatever it is that you're doing. And if you can do that moment by moment in your life, what a magical, like, amazing.
I definitely think, like what you said about talking about this is really important, because for me personally, like, I didn't really experience these sort of conversations in real life. It was only over other podcasts that I was listening to. A lot of people feel like they can't talk about it, but it is what a lot of, what you're saying, like, what sustains us. And it's hard when you go into the world and nobody's talking about it. You kind of, like, for me, it kind of felt like, I'm like, am I insane? Like, am I losing my mind? So I just want to thank you for sharing your story and about it, because it does really help so many people. Well, at least helps me. So,
and I think that's one of the things I love so much about podcasting. Like, we are, whoever's listening to this, and honestly, if you've got an audience of one, that one person is one person, and like, moving away from that need to be driven by numbers or metrics, and just go, you know, I'm just here. My only focus right now is to connect with whoever it is that I'm connecting with. And when you and I connect like that, like, truly intentionally, even if no one else ever listens to this conversation, they will benefit from it, because energetically we are creating something. And to me, that's the only thing that now matters in my life, is actually none of the other stuff matters. And the more we can talk, because it's not saying it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's important, you know, because it helps life, you know, you're having a roof over your head and you need to make money and stuff. But honestly, when we, at the end of our days, it means nothing. What matters is how we showed up and how we contributed and how we helped and supported each other. And so much of this stuff has been mixed up with people's religious upbringings and dogma and the, you know, religious institutions and the actual essence of what it is all about. It's like we've lost that. And it really does, to me, feel like these conversations that we're having are just to remind people of what they already know, but they're too scared to admit it because they're really worried what people are going to think. Like, my family don't understand it. My ex doesn't understand it. My kids don't understand it. And I had a situation with my son, and it was almost like that situation of feeling the opposition in my family almost strengthened me. It was like, well, if my family think I'm a Fruit Loop, who gives a shit what anybody else thinks? Like, you know, like, they still love me. They think I'm crazy and they don't understand. It's not their job to understand. They don't have to understand. This is it's a personal thing. It is my personal experience. It is your personal experience. But we have the courage now and the voice to be able to share that. And we have this wonderful gift of podcasting, the medium of podcasting, to be able to have those conversations, to give other people the courage and the inspiration to actually be able to go, I'm not going mad. It's okay. There are other people out there that think and feel similarly. I'm going to connect with them. I'm going to trust that they're out there, but I can still mix in with the world, and I just can do it in a way that feels true and meaningful for me.
There's something you said earlier as well about the more you know, the less you know about everything. And I'm just wondering how I guess I kind of might have an idea from what you've been talking about today, but how do you sit with that? Sit with that knowing and just be okay with that?
I think the idea of that, I know for me, the idea of that is that if I can just say the way I think about things or my belief system, I'm just going to assume that's not true. I'm just going to assume the way I'm understanding something isn't true. I'm going to assume the way that I see the world isn't true. I'm just going to say, accept that obviously we all have to have a program. We all have to have a lens through which to see the world, but I don't need to be attached to that. And I don't need to think that I know, or have to have an opinion about things, or have to tell people that why they're wrong and I'm right. Like, I can just, it's like it becomes more of an experience rather than a no. And as you do that, it's like, well, the only thing that really is true is love and connection. So, and Alan Watts has done a lot of work. I don't know if you've come across Alan Watts. I love Alan Watts. And he's just like, you know, he talks about the absurdity of it all. You know, it's all a nonsense. It's just a nonsense. It's a nonsense. And I think that's what I mean. It's like, just let's not take this whole thing so seriously. And you look at any great spiritual teacher, they're laughing their heads off at us. They're seriously laughing. They're going, you guys are crazy. Because you think you know everything. You know, if you think you know everything, then you know nothing. If you know nothing, then you've won the game. Because what is there to know? A whole bunch of opinions, a whole bunch of facts, a whole bunch of things that, you know, in 200 years' time will be disproved. But the truth never changes. And I want to know the truth. Like, I want to be one with the truth. And if that means I have to let go of absolutely every notion in my head, I'm willing to do that. But I also recognise I still need to live in the world. So I still need to, have my smarts. But I don't need to get upset about things. I don't need to get angry about things. I don't need to be right. I don't need to do tit for tat. I can just do it lovingly, calmly, compassionately, presently, try and have a laugh about it. Again, I'm not saying I've mastered this, but I can live with that intention. Because really, what are we knowing? We're knowing somebody's interpretation of what they think they know about something. Is that knowledge? I don't know.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's, and like, you know how you said that you still have to be in the world and sort of, I guess what I want to know how you can have that sort of like spiritual awareness and also, I don't know, be content with it, because sometimes I'm just like, I feel it's like I'm like playing into the game and I'm like, what's happening? Like, why are we doing this? It's like, not like what you're saying. It's not real. It's absurd. Why are we doing it?
So I think you just got to stop asking that question. Just accepting that we're doing it. Okay. But meditation, I think, you know, honestly, and that was the key for me. And that's how, it's like that was the key for me, was meditation. And, you know, like the second key that's really been shown to me was this new podcast that I'm doing, which was just having conversations with people about what not being on their own means for them. That's it. Because we're not talking about you as your little ego self. We're actually talking about you as how you are moving through life, understanding that you are the bigger part of you. And the more conversations, the more we open ourselves up to that, the less power and hold that smaller egoic self has over us. And that's the one that needs to know and has to understand. It's like, because there's nothing to know and there's nothing to understand. I'm not, to be fair and to be honest, I don't actually even understand what that means. But I'm in accepting that I don't know and I don't understand. I'm getting closer to knowing and understanding. It's I can't even put it into words. There's not any, it cannot, it's an experience. It cannot be put into words. And Eckhart Tolle always talks about pointing to it. So, you know, we talk about the moon. When we're talking about the moon, we don't know the moon. We have never been there, but we can point to the moon. And you can go, oh, the moon is in the sky and it goes through its stages. And you could be the expert on the moon, but you've never been to the moon. You could be an expert, and Paramasanda Yogananda talks about honey, right? You could have written a PhD on honey and never tasted honey. You don't know what it tastes like. You can tell us it tastes sweet and it's this kind of texture and stuff, but you don't know honey. You could be the world's expert in honey and still not understand honey because you've never experienced it. And that's, there's lots of people that talk around knowing everything, like I've written this book about, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but do you know it? And the other thing, I can't remember where I heard or read it, was actually like, those who know of the truth don't speak of the truth, or something like that. It's the ones that know, don't talk about it. They don't need to. It's the ones that think they know about it that talk about it. And that's where, I said I've been really knocked off my perch a couple of times. It's like I'm not really understanding what I'm teaching here. I'm not really understanding what I'm communicating here. That's okay. And, forgiving myself or forgiving whatever for that and going, okay, well, I don't know. But had I not taken those massive leaps and tried, like a genuinely good intention that kind of got manipulated, right? Okay, I just want to bring it back to the intention without the manipulation next time. But I know where my weak points are now. I know where I'm going to fall over potentially next time. And guess what? There'll be other things that I'm going to trip over. That's never going to end. Okay, I'm going to keep making mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'm going to get things wrong. That's okay. But I know to listen in with myself now, and I won't go so far down the wrong road next time. And eventually I'll just stop going down the wrong road at all. And maybe I have. Who knows? Who actually even cares?
So true. And also, it was actually on your podcast that I heard that the other day. It was one of your guests speaking about the Tao. He who knows of the Tao doesn't speak of the Tao. I just
there
heard
you
it
go.
from you guys just the other day. But, I guess, so just release the need to know, because that's something that has been coming up to, really focusing on like the little things and your immediate surroundings, just like sort of what you were saying. It's just doing the best you can where you are, and how you were saying, like, just having sort of connections, like an energy just between two people. It affects everyone. Simple,
it's
but
so
hard to execute.
simple. Like, it is so simple. And, like, even when, I had this experience with my kids, I was like, okay, well, if I truly trust that everything happens for a reason, and if I'm truly trusting that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, like where I am now is where I am now, and where I am now is perfect. And if I really believe that, then I'll just be okay with where I am. And it's not forever. Nothing's forever. And there's always going to be something really good that comes out of it. And I'm like, as we're speaking, I know that I'm in the middle of a really quite significant, beautiful redirection, and I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet, and I have no need to know. And it's the first time where I've been in a bit of a void peacefully, like truly peacefully. It's like, it's all okay. And then I bumped into one of my neighbours down the street just before, who I met hanging clothes out in the line. We live in an apartment block, and he said, Fiona, I've been meaning to message you. I've got and I'd just before been in the cafe doing some work, and I was like, oh yeah, today's a 50k day, like I've got these little affirmations and stuff, and I just thought, that's my 50k client. It's there. It's already there. I just need to calm down, relax, do the right thing by myself, do the right thing by other people, and it will manifest. That's all I have to do. I literally just have to go and hang the clothes on the line. When you're in true flow and alignment, wherever you are, it is perfect. The perfect opportunity is for you where you are right now. It's not in 5 minutes' time or 2 years down the road or in the next suburb. It's right here, right now. But if we're not present to it, we're going to miss all of those opportunities and all of those cues and all of it, because we're all exactly where we're meant to be at that moment in time. And if we can truly lean into that and trust that, that is how we live this quite extraordinary life in what might be the most ordinary of circumstances.
Wow, I think that's a great place to that's so beautiful, and thank you for that reminder. I think we hear these things, but can be hard to embody them, and I just really appreciate you coming on and sharing your unique perspective on it all. It's been really beneficial, and I can't wait to go over and look through everything. And I'm just really grateful to have connected. And yeah, just thank you so much for all of it and sharing and being open. And vulnerable.
Thanks for creating this show, Bella. You know, you're listening too, you know, and trust that as well. But I think it's good to ask the questions, but we don't want to ask the questions. But you have to ask the questions to know not to ask the questions, you know, and just accepting that too. It's just being okay with wherever you are on your road. You're where you are, and that's okay.
Was there anything in particular that you wanted to talk about or share?
No. But look, you know, people want to find out a little bit more about me, they can listen to the Happiness Hunter podcast or the Always With Me podcast, or they can find me at thehappinesshunter.com.
Great. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much again.
Thanks, Bella.
I'll stop the...
Thank you so much for spending your time with us. If you want to hear more of these sort of conversations, Fiona is facilitating that space for guests on her newest podcast, Always With Me. She already has many episodes out, and I actually binged to listen to them before having her on the show. The energy and space created on that podcast, you can tell the guests are just being really open and real, and it's really great. I definitely think you should check that out. I will link to everything in the show notes. And if you have any feedback on the episode, anything you want to talk about, a topic you want to hear in a future episode, a guest you want to hear from on the podcast, you can message the podcast on Instagram at howarewe222live. And it would also be really groovy if you could share this episode with someone who you think would value from hearing Fiona's perspective and insights, and share the show with anyone who is also wondering how are we to live in this world. I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you again. Peace and love.